because you never know what you're going to find before the record button hits.
We say a lot of funny shit before the record button, and then we record and things stop,
Just dead. Cold openings are really, really hard.
They are. So as we've shared around this article and you and I beat on it a little bit, I had a question that popped in my mind, and it'll lead into what we're gonna talk about today. And the name on the top of the article says Project Nessie, but my mind said this is not the first time I've heard this name, and then I wondered, right? Is somebody really upset that they've accidentally hijacked the name? And I believe there was a data project called Project Nessie, which there is. It's called projectnessie.org.
Yeah. And
it's a transactional catalog for data lakes. And I don't know anything about it. I haven't used it. I have no background in it. Just looking at it right now. But Amazon, the article you sent over, has been given the name or taken the name Project Nessie. And I don't think it has anything to do with the org either. But I'm just thinking they might be a little annoyed that somebody's kind of hijacked their name.
Yeah, they're giving them not the not the best look when it comes to the news.
Yeah, tarnish their name a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. But I think that this was actually, I think the name actually came from an internal project at Amazon. And for folks that maybe not, have heard the news or don't know exactly what we're talking about, very recently, Amazon was, a lawsuit was filed against Amazon over what the internal name was, Project Nessie, which is a project that is really there to kind of squeeze more money out of you and me and really the sellers inside of the, kind of the Amazon ecosystem. And the lawsuit claims that Amazon essentially made their search worse to drive more profit. And for folks that haven't listened to our enshittification episode, I highly suggest you go back and check that one out, because this is really a bit of a kind of a play against that almost. In that episode, we really talked a lot about how platforms generally deteriorate. And one of the reasons is that, as a platform is new, you need customers, you need all of those things. So you give them lots of discounts. You make the platform look very, very appealing to them. And then once you get all of the customers, then you can go to the sellers and say, look at all of these sellers, join our platform. It's really, really great. And then once you make it to where the buyers and the sellers are both really reliant upon your system, you can start to squeeze both of them. And this is really a great example of Amazon squeezing both the consumer and the producer of the seller of the goods in multiple different ways. It's honestly, if true, that's a lawsuit, but if true, what they're saying is that Amazon made over $1 billion in 2 years with this particular project. Yeah,
just with this modification, right? And what's interesting, like you're saying with our shittification one as well, is this an act of predatory pricing, which is, intentionally driving those prices up, trying to beat out your competitors. And predatory pricing is when you're going to set a price low and then you basically try to drive out competitors in the market. And then you raise prices significantly once you've changed out the competition to basically help to reduce or eliminate those competitors. So it's a way in manipulating prices where you squeeze out all your competitors, thus keeping yourself, right, as the top dog in the space you're in. That's kind of what they've been doing. Or is it more, and I do think it's the first one, I think, but the other one would be like more price leadership, right? Where you're the dominant company in the marketplace, which they also are. And you start setting the prices for everything. So if you drive prices higher, even though they shouldn't be higher, you're setting what the market deems the value of the product is. Even though that might be an inflated value of it, they're setting that value and everyone else has to follow.
That's right. And, the big fish can push the market.
Right.
And, as you kind of read through this article, they talk about how, the Amazon executives acknowledged that these policies, which included requiring Amazon sellers to have the lowest prices online or risk consequences, had a punitive aspect. One executive pointed out that many sellers live in constant fear of being penalized by Amazon for not following the ever-changing pricing policies. And, when you think about something like that, you're forcing Amazon to have the lowest price, or that the seller, if you're going to sell on Amazon, you have to sell it at the lowest price here. You can't sell it anywhere else. And it also alleges that they were monitoring. Not only do they say that, but they're actually going out and monitoring sellers and punishing them if they're selling for lower prices at other places.
On other platforms, right?
Platforms, including their own. Like, so say that they have their own, e-commerce site and they sell on Amazon. If you're trying to give people anything, they're coming after you.
Right. And you can't sell it on your own website even cheaper or have better discounts than you give through Amazon.
And what they're saying is that that's really violating antitrust laws. And we've also seen this come up in other areas like Epic Games versus Apple, where you couldn't even say that you could buy this through my website. You could only say it inside of the Play Store and all those other pieces. And
right. Okay.
To me, it feels like there's a lot of overtones of the same type of thing here where, I am going to force you into this ecosystem. I'm going to keep you trapped inside of this ecosystem. And then I am going to then punish you if you try to go outside of this ecosystem. And, for things like, for anybody that hasn't kind of worked inside of the app ecosystem in Google or the iPhone, there's like a 45% fee that you get charged to have your app on either one of those platforms.
Right. On the platform itself. Right.
So if you make $1 and they're forcing you to go through the app store, then you're giving it 45 cents of every dollar to Apple or to Google to, basically for providing the ecosystem and giving you the ability to be able to do those things.
Right. But the price might be high and I don't disagree with that, but it's not unfair, right? I should have to pay for them managing and handling the platform, no different than me using a cloud provider, right? So I don't think that's unfair. The question might come, like you said, if it's I'm paying almost 50% of the dollar to it, 40 something percent, 43% or something you were just saying, like of $1. That seems a bit high. Like, what am I really getting for that 40%, 43%?
Well, and especially as you start to scale that, which is really the challenge where, if you're a large app and you're selling hundreds and hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, that can be a pretty significant check you're writing every month.
Yeah.
To someone like Apple. And believe me, it's not easy to run that kind of an ecosystem, but 45% seems to be a bit high.
It's a bit high. I'm not disagreeing with it. It's a bit high. And the other problem is you're locked into these environments. I don't have a choice. I can't go anywhere. I can't go anywhere as a developer, and I can't really go anywhere else as a customer, a user, right? And I have a phone that's one or the other, and my apps are here or here. So this is the only ecosystem. It's already a monopoly in itself, I guess.
That's correct. And there's I know this wasn't the topic of the episode, but
that's a little side tangent. Yeah.
So even in Europe, I believe here very soon, they're going to be allowing side loading of apps onto the iPhone. They're forcing Apple to be able to do that.
And there are pros and cons to that for itself, like security, but
there are. And that was the argument that Apple made throughout the whole thing is we don't allow these kinds of things because we enforce security standards and all of these other aspects that make this ecosystem great.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry. I do like the fact that anytime I'm going to download an app in my Apple ecosystem here, I don't have to worry. I have right now trust that at least I'm not going to download some virus like an old Windows machine where, every other app from some weird site could be a virus. I like the fact that it's clean and it's safe and I can have some trust in it. One less thing to worry about.
Yeah. And for somebody that used the Google ecosystem for a long time, and there's a huge difference between the two ecosystems. There's a lot that I actually like about the Google ecosystem, but trash apps and things that are going to steal your data is way more prevalent on the kind of the Google side of the world than on the Apple side of the world.
Yeah, and that's my understanding as well.
But to kind of go back to back to kind of the Amazon piece here with this kind of Project Nessie. We talked about how they're monitoring all of these different sellers and making sure that they're not selling things for a lower price. And they're really going after people to force them to have the lowest price on Amazon. And you could look at some of those and say, okay, well, they're trying to get the best price. Amazon's trying to get the best price for the consumer.
Right.
Fine. But here's the more nefarious part in my mind about this whole thing is, all right, well, you're forcing them to sell at a low price. You're forcing them not to be able to sell anywhere else at a low price. And now what they're doing is what this is really about. It's changing the search algorithm to promote either ads, other things, and they're deteriorating their search algorithm to force sellers to be able to force them into buying ads to get their stuff promoted up to the top.
Well, it's almost like they're creating an echo chamber, right? They're manipulating because they're manipulating the data that you're getting, what you see, how you interact with it, what choices you make, like you're saying, based on that. So the marketing team being told that we just want more ads on the screen. We just want to show more things to the customer. And I don't care if they're even irrelevant, but I just need to get more eyeballs on these things because we make more money on advertising. So, load up the pages, load up the search engine, load up whatever you can so that we're basically, it still reminds me of the book I told you, Ready Player One, where the guy's like, we believe we can cover, what was it, 80% of the screen before we induce seizures. Like,
well, so, what they actually, so they had an internal word that they used called defects, which for us feels something completely different. But what they talked about is, the defect to them was they were trying to, Amazon has increased not only the number of advertisements it shows, but also the number of irrelevant junk ads.
Right.
And that's what they were referring to as defects. And, here's a quote in the lawsuit says, Mr. Bezos instructed his executives to accept more defects because Amazon can extract billions of dollars through increased advertising, despite worsening the service for its customers.
Right. So the customer is not their focus. The focus is on making ad revenue.
That's right. Well, and it's all about making money, not about having the best product or the best service.
Right. But it comes back to what you said before. People feel not trapped, but loyal customers have bought things from Amazon or stay on Amazon. I go to Amazon to look for things all the time. You do too, probably. And we choose that because over the years, we've come to be appreciative that I can always find something and I can get it sent to the house quick and it's easy to read and it's easy to find. And we know that's degraded over the years. But there's also, I think for some people, that's all they know is just go to Amazon. They don't really shop anywhere else. They don't shop direct from customers. So they're trapped. So now kind of the path we're looking at here, those people are forced to deal with the messy environment, deal with the poor search, right? It's
I've even experienced this personally where I didn't really realize that the search was getting worse. What I realized is I wasn't finding what I wanted, and I didn't really get it. And what I actually started doing was Googling things, the thing that I was looking for, and trying to find and identify the thing that I was looking for. Then just like, oh, here's exactly the words that I want to use to find the thing, and then put that directly in the search. And more and more name brand things are not actually there. And I think that's another very interesting part about Amazon. A lot of, I'm super big into overlanding and, off-roading and all those types of things. A lot of that stuff you cannot find on Amazon.
Correct. I have not seen that on there.
They don't want to put up with the low price problems, the fighting problems, all of the things that come along with selling on Amazon that are no good for your actual business.
Right. A lot of stuff coming, and I maybe this is to make more money again. Like you said, I don't know. Now I'm just talking standing on a box, but are they buying more of the stuff out of China and working with companies coming out of China and other countries where the price margin is increased and they're making more money off selling the product? So they'd rather have the search engine bring up a lot of no-name brands, right? Instead of bringing up these big name brands that we've been buying to for years. Because if I bring up a big, very famous retailer, the margin for Amazon to make any money on this outside of what the retailer's making is very small compared to if I pick a company that's making a widget and it's a $2 widget that I'm selling for $50, I'm going to make a good amount of money reselling this thing.
Right. And there's another interesting piece of, kind of information in this article as well, talking about the Amazon logistics program. So all of these things all tie together, and, most people that are selling on Amazon don't manage their logistics.
Right.
Amazon, you just send them pallets of stuff. They will throw it into their warehouse, organize it, and then when it sells, it just goes right out the door.
Right. And you pay a little bit for that, but they manage that for you. So you decide how much do you want them to manage or not manage? Because you can do your own drop shipping too. But
yeah. And but the interesting thing is they make more than just a little bit. So through this kind of Project Nessie, the increase, so the Amazon fulfillment logistics program increased what they call their take rate, which is the percentage they make off of it, from 27.6% to 39.5%.
And that's the guarantee that they can still ship it overnight because they're already holding the product. So you can do overnight, next day, whatever. You can do their prime.
Well, but that's the price that the seller's paying.
Right. But so you're paying for the service from Amazon that says you're going to still get their logistics component.
So if you think about it, if you're a seller, you're getting hit three different ways. Is I have to sell at the lowest price anywhere.
Yep.
I almost certainly have to pay for ads to get my product for people in front of people's eyeballs.
Correct. Which is not going to be cheap.
And then I'm going to pay 40% for logistics.
Right.
How anybody can actually afford to sell on Amazon, if once you start to think about those kinds of things, is it almost beyond me. Unless you're selling, to the point you were making a minute ago, you're selling cheap products, knockoffs of good products.
It's got to be. Yeah.
Have big kind of profit margins already. And then you're kind of cutting it down and whittling away to see. And most of it is going kind of directly to Amazon.
Yeah, because you figure most people are paying all of that. And at the end of the day, they're probably making a very small amount, 10%, 20%, if they're lucky, on what they're actually like selling. I was just looking up some stats here really quick, and it's saying that new sellers, new products can make close to $30 million annually, but most sellers that are on there today make at least $1,000 a month in sales. Super sellers can make more than $100,000 a month in sales, whatever that means to a point, right? And then on average, about 25% of sellers can average between $20,000 to $250,000 a month, depending on products. Now, that doesn't tell how much of that they keep or how much they sell, but they're making a decent amount. Now, like you said, what's interesting on that is how much of that do I lose? Yeah, it's saying almost 50% of people who sell on Amazon actually only make $1,000 to $25,000 a month.
That's a big gap.
Yeah.
And if statistics from other platforms hold true, like the top, I don't know, 80% of that probably goes to 1% of the sellers.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but I do know from like YouTube, 80% of the people watch it's like 0.88% of the creators. And I would imagine that same type of number probably holds true here, where, if you have all of the infrastructure to put it together and you know how to work with Amazon logistics and all of those other things, Amazon knows you can't move. There is nowhere else that you can do that. And they can just keep cranking the screws down on you.
Yeah. And you have nothing you can do. Amazon fees pay for a lot of value with it. They are too costly or have risen too fast is subjective. This is an interesting little article. Both Amazon advertising and FBA are not optional services, though, and 50% of the cost of selling, and they're also 50% of the cost of selling on Amazon. And the various services that 50% pays for are required. So pretty much right off the bat, 50% of what you're going to make, you have to pay. Like you have to pay for these services, to your point. Which means, and what this article is talking about is now referral fees are another 8 to 15%, and advertising is up to another 20, 30, what does that say? 15%. So that's another 30% over the 50 if I need to do a lot of referral fees and advertising fees. So at the end of the day, what am I doing? 70 or 80% just to try to sell the product?
So if you sold $100 product and made $10 off of it, $8 of that $10 are going to go to Amazon.
Right. And then you wonder why somebody's only making $1,000 where they actually should be making maybe $100,000 or, $10,000, whatever. But
should's a strong word there, but yes, like it, 80% to do. Yeah. I guess it depends on exactly, how much does it take to actually do that? I've actually thought about doing this, and this was like 10 years ago, but
yeah.
You can buy things and ship them directly to Amazon, and the only thing you have to do is create your listings.
Yeah, you'd have to find the right product. That's a whole nother interesting show people would probably like, but you could show how to look for trends, follow trends, find a product, sell that product, and actually make a profit off of it. It's not impossible, but like anything, it takes work. Nothing is easy and free.
That's right. When there's a gold rush, sell shovels. Yep.
I do love that. It should be on a shirt.
It really should. I mean, and it's true. Like you don't want to be digging for gold.
No, but everybody needs a shovel.
Exactly right. You know what? The gold's up there.
Yep. So, and this came up in an article because of Amazon doing this, but I mean, as a whole, all retailers are doing pricing and pricing models. Now, you made a very specific point earlier, which is valid here, very valid. But just stepping back a little, all retailers, to the best of their ability, try to manipulate pricing to have the best position in the market at any one time. They're either automated, so they're following trends and they're following changes in the market and dynamically making changes in price based on what's going on, or they're old school and they're at least changing them once a day, trying to keep up with the market. Now, that's not really exactly what we're talking about, but my brain wonders, are we picking on, and these are leading questions, right? Are we picking on Amazon a little bit for doing this? I already know the answers, but we got to go somewhere with this, right?
I think we are in a lot of ways. I mean, let me shed a tear for Mr. Bezos and his 600-foot yacht.
Yeah, we all feel bad for him,
It sucks to be that guy. But I think we are absolutely picking on him. But I guess you made the point about a free market, and I would make the case that this is not a free market anymore.
Well, once he started doing some of the things that you mentioned, which is why I said I'm kind of leading question into this, because there's this fine line, I think, between the two.
So here's actually another example. And I think this one's easier to understand because Amazon is really complicated. Like, as we're talking about, like the fulfillment and all of those things, it is really, really, really complicated. One of the other things that, so my wife and I have an RV. We love traveling around, and, we go to.
Except when you get lost with Google, we can watch that one of our other shows.
It happens. It happens. Don't make me go off on Google again. But I saw an article recently about a company who was gathering data around daily rates for RV parks. And they are trying to sell it to RV owners, or RV park owners, to be able to build dynamic pricing for their park.
Right. Based on need, right? Based on trends, basically, right? Usage trends.
Based on trends, usage patterns, and what everyone else in the area is charging.
Okay. So another level out. It's paying attention to all the parks.
Yes. It's trying to do all of that.
Yep.
And
so you see that as good or bad, though? I don't see that as a bad thing unless they do price gouging or not price gouging, but they go back to trying to manipulate based on pricing. So if they overcharge because of it excessively, then it's a problem. But if they're doing it generally following the market, then I don't know if I see that as a bad thing.
Well, I would suggest that there is no market anymore. You're creating a system that will only consistently increase prices, regardless of market pressure.
Well, it depends if it never goes down. Yeah. If it truly ebbs and flows based on demand. So in the winter, when less people are doing it, if the prices are cheap, and then in the summer it goes up a bit, then it's following the same model we've seen from gas stations for years.
Agreed. The gas station's a commodity, which is a bit of
but it still ebbs and flows pricing and screws around with it every day.
Always constant downward pressure on gas prices. Let me explain that a little bit more. So I would suggest that there's a lot more demand, and there's a lot more options for people that will constantly be putting pressure, and it's something that people buy all the time. So they're more price conscious about it.
So they're paying more attention, you believe?
Always a bit more downward pressure there.
Okay.
I would suggest that something in, like, the other part is it's not necessarily a commodity. It's I don't know exactly what you would call it.
Yeah, but I see what you're trying to say. But I even though the market of users is smaller, I think the rule or the point that I'm trying to make, which is the flexibility in the pricing. If the pricing ever goes up, well, then you're trying to strong arm and you're just trying to make more profits. And that's bad. If you're trying to equal out your ability to run your business, you're trying to level out a bit and say, okay, in my busy season, I'll make the extra money. The reason we call it Black Friday, the first time a retailer goes from being in the red to being in the black. So if I know I can level that out a little bit without being, doing harm to my customer, and during peak season where everybody wants to use the park, it's a little more expensive. And in the winter when it's not, it's cheaper. Then I'm trying to be fair and create consistency. But to your point, if every time I look, I'm just slowly creeping the price up where it never comes down, well, now you're manipulating. Now you're trying to take advantage of customers.
Yeah. And how do you, And I think this is the same problem, whether you're talking about Amazon pricing or a mom and pop shop, RV park. Like, if I know that everyone else is raising prices, then I can too. And there's very little downward pressure that would come from it. Like in Amazon's perspective, what is a seller going to do? They're just going to stop selling on Amazon, or they're going to, sorry about that audio problem.
Yeah, that was weird.
So let me try that again. If you're Amazon, what are you going to do? The seller's going to leave, and Amazon's not really going to care very much unless half of their sellers leave.
Correct.
And right now, it's something like 90% of people don't even look anywhere else. They just go straight to Amazon.
Which goes back to what I was saying before. They have a loyal following only because of the simplicity of shopping, right? You don't know where else to go. You don't want to have to. People don't want to think. Don't make me think, right? It's the pattern. Don't make me think. I just go there and I look. Doesn't mean it's right, but unfortunately, that's what many of us have been mentally trained to do.
So I guess to me, it comes down to how do you tell the difference between price gouging, price maximization, and what do you even do about it? Because that's a fine line. Like, I totally agree with you. I believe in the free market. I believe that, price, like in a free market, supply and demand will dictate the price of a given thing.
Correct.
The amount of information, like if I had all information to set the price, that becomes a little bit dangerous, because you're not guessing. You're not trying to think, if I am a buyer, the price of a given thing is what it, I'm willing to pay X for something. But if data science says that, I'll actually pay 30% more, well, you can start to whittle and whittle and whittle and whittle your way towards everything becoming more and more and more expensive. And I would make an argument that we're seeing that right now in just about everything. And I believe that it's when we think about data science and the kind of the proliferation of data science into everything, it is now figuring out, how do you price optimize everything? Whether it's the loaf of bread, whether it's at the store, whether it's a gallon of milk, whether it's anything, all of these things are optimized for you to pay the maximum amount every time, everywhere. And I think I clearly can't do a great job of describing it, but there is it does not feel like the fair market is actually working, because
it's harder and harder because there's more and more data and more automation being put on top of it. Right.
Yeah.
So you have general dynamic pricing, which we talked about before, right? And I can set up systems that are smart enough to change pricing. Like I was saying before, during peak and off peak seasons, it can respond quickly. I can make my umbrellas really expensive as soon as it starts raining outside, because I have that data. And to your point, my data science can help me, whether I put machine learning into the system or whatever else. I can code a system. I can design a system that takes care of doing that. I can have a system that's smart enough to tell the people on the floor in my store to change the shelves in the front. So if it's going to rain, bring the umbrellas forward. If it's going to be a hot day, bring the suntan lotion forward. Like, I know this is what people are going to want because it's the day it's going to be. And I can manipulate that for sales, but that's not bad at that point. That's still okay. Now we take it a step further, like you're saying. Let's say I'm smart enough to know all my customer segments. And now I start to discriminate pricing based on that. So if you're in a C-level store and I know that maybe you can't afford or you can afford something, I'm going to price it a certain way. Now I go to a AAA store and I know I'm in the posh area. Everybody's got a lot of money. They're driving Porsches, so they can afford it. Now I'm going to double the price of a steak just because I know you can afford it. Now, is that fair? No. The cow is the same cow no matter where I put it. Now that starts to move us, like you're saying, over that fine line. Then further goes into what we're talking about today, which is even market manipulation. And how am I manipulating the market in a way that I am changing the pricing, the needs, the wants. I'm changing how people are even seeing and thinking about this in many different ways. I'm manipulating a lot of different factors to change the market itself and manipulate it in a way that I'm setting it to make you think this is the perfect thing, the perfect price, the perfect reason why you should buy. Everybody else is doing it. You should do it. Come on, and it goes down that. And then I think it just gets worse from there, right? And even like you said, we can get a lack of trust in the whole process in itself. And we have a lack of trust in a lot of our processes, but we don't have the ability to change it. Where are you going to go?
That's right. Where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go? We've allowed these big companies to kill our mom and pop shops to the fact that, like you said, I was looking for some material for my room here to help with some of the echo that I might get in the new room. So I'm like, okay, let me get some foam. Let me get some sound foam. And I went right to Amazon. I'm like, I bought some really good stuff from them last time. I'm just going to shop there. And then I realized I don't know any name brands where I'd go to their website directly to buy it. With the Jeep stuff, like you said, I know my Jeep materials. I know who I buy from. I got the catalogs on the table. Like I know my Jeep stuff, but I don't know this. And it's not even something that I normally see online where you and I could have a discussion and I'm going to go, go call that company. They're perfect. I've talked to them. I know the owner. It's a great company. Like that doesn't really happen now.
No, it doesn't. And a lot of those companies they struggle to stay alive. It doesn't matter how price competitive they try to get. They just can't. And it can become a bit of a struggle. Right. And you're right. You can, like, my mind goes to the airline industry here, where we all know the dynamic pricing, like turn your freaking browser on incognito mode before you ever go search for a flight, because that is the cheapest you are ever going to get it the first time you see it. Right. Once you're looking for a flight somewhere, you are done. Yeah. You are going to pay 20, 25, 30% more. Like call your friend and have them look up prices for different days and then have them call you back. And then you go in and buy the one the first time. Yep. Yeah. It'll get you every time. So I see that in the pharmaceutical, oil and gas, telecommunications, and airlines. And those are the four areas where it's always, everyone calls it out, right? It's common in discussion, I think, in this area of being accused of consistently raising prices, sometimes to excessive levels for things. There's medication that we pay crazy amounts of money here for that you can go over the border to Mexico, and many people do. And you can get it for pennies on a dollar in Mexico for the same medication. So why is it so expensive here? There's no reason. Wow. We'll save that for another. I actually know a lot about that. We'll save that for another episode. You go monthly and pick some stuff up. Yeah. Run down there to Tijuana. Yeah. I know a guy. But actually I know quite a bit about that answer. I just don't want to spend 20 minutes going into it. No, it's all good. But those are the areas that I think of that come up in conversation often. They do, but the other areas are becoming more and more prominent. People just don't realize it. Like through inflation we've had over the last handful of years, which I'll keep out of why some of that, but I would suggest that some of the pressure there is from exactly what we're just talking about. It's data, price, it's you understand what people are doing, what people will pay for, and all of those different things to figure out what is the highest price that I can sell this for at any given time to any given person. And that to me is a really scary thing. And there's nowhere you can go to get away from it is the worst part. Yeah, and I agree. And I think from the AI, machine learning, data science side, like you're saying, I think there's a overconfidence in what it's providing and what it's doing. So we're losing the human oversight, the human intervention in it. So
a lot of choices are being made from a technical aspect, which is just ones and zeros. And we're losing both the ethical and the social considerations that should be taken into account here, and even the long-term business decisions into it. So great, it might make money today. It could, done incorrectly, actually kill a business. Maybe not physically by the numbers because you're making money, but all your customers are going to get annoyed and they're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else. Because at some point in time, there is always a competitor. You can think you're the biggest guy in the block, but I mean, one of the reasons Amazon is doing this is look at all these other pop-up marketplaces that are coming up from around the world that are doing quite well. Watch our other podcasts for why that model is working for them. Yes, but right, it's a real model and it is a real competitive advantage for them because they've already seen Amazon do it. They understand what they're doing, so they can mimic parts of that and basically steal customers from Amazon.
Yeah. And, competition is always the strongest downward force in prices. And, we've seen such a consolidation into these gigantic companies that, we'll just be honest, they have no soul. Like, you're just a conglomeration of people that are making decisions to try to do things that aren't, like there's ethical ramifications for this article we're talking about. But, do I think that some people in Amazon were making really bad ethical choices? Here, it kind of sounds like the answer is yeah.
Right.
But I would suggest that most people, like back to the grocery analogy, I don't think there's a lot of people there that are trying to do the end goal, but unintended consequences happen all the time in all of these things.
Yes. Most decisions are made myopically with whether they realize it or not. Most people do not have a view or a lens of things so wide that they can think of every situation and every possible combination. So most choices, not for any nefarious reasons, are made in a very myopically focused way where it ends up having serious consequences sometimes down the road.
Well, and you're in the retail space. You might actually even know more of the numbers here, but have you noticed that lines keep getting longer in the grocery store?
Yeah, because I just went today and I had long lines again.
There always seems to be a long line and not enough people to check people out.
Yes.
I read an article a while back around why this actually is. And I believe this to be true, but I've not actually seen the research paper on it, and also take it with a bit of a grain of salt.
Okay.
But my understanding for why this actually is they have, through the cameras and everything else that they have in there, they have figured out how long you'll actually wait in line before you abandon your cart.
Okay.
And they take the amount of people they expect into the store and then do the math to say, well, if there's these number of people in the store, I will expect this person to wait on average 12 minutes or something before they make it through the line. Now I can start to do the math to figure out what is the minimum number of people that I need to actually be there to man the store.
Yep.
Instead of saying, well, it's the exact opposite of saying, well, I want good customer service and I want to give people a nice, friendly checkout and smile and wave at them as they walk out. It's not that anymore. It is, I am going to do the bare minimum to, like, if this person will stand here for 8 minutes with their cart, I am going to have them stand there for 7 minutes and 59 minutes.
59 seconds. Yeah.
Before they make it through. And, to me, it's just a shift. It's a shift towards minimalism of I am going to do the bare minimum to whatever versus, providing good customer service, going over and above for whatever. And these big, that was the beauty of the mom and pop shop. Well,
you had personal service with mom and pop. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're paying a little bit more for a product, but you're getting good customer service, all of those kinds of things. Where with a lot of these big companies, you're paying for the cheapest thing possible. And that's it. I don't want to pay 38 cents for a ear of corn. I want to pay, whatever, doesn't matter. And it's, I don't know. It's a crazy world.
And what you're bringing up is a whole nother crazy discussion in how you look at that. And it's a great topic in itself, but you could look at it from one angle and say, well, that's all silly. And it's really just because I have staff shortages, or I'm doing that because I have staffing issues. I don't have enough people. So I need to hire just enough. And it costs a lot of money to have all those employees in the store and manage all those employees and deal with all of that. So if I can optimize my, workforce in the store itself, I can make some profit instead of loss for that store. So there's pros and cons in some of that, right? And it could also just be an increase in customer volume. Now that people stopped having groceries shipped back to their house, they're coming back to the stores. So it's a mix of two, right? So we have some physical issues. There's always, What is it?
So that's what the man would say. Who are you working for?
Yeah. But we take it to the other side now, and there's interesting things, which is if I slow down lines and I have you stand there longer, you have time to think. So now what I'm doing is I'm encouraging you to have more impulse purchases, because either you're going to be by one of the tables in the front, and I'm going to get you on the last mile. So you're either going to buy candy bars or water or magazine. Maybe there's some other stuff, or you're going to forget something you wanted.
That are all price optimized because they know you're going to stand there. You're more willing to buy that stuff. And so they're going to have a great markup on it because you're a captive audience at that point.
Exactly right. And then there's another crazy one, which again is like another model of this is theoretically it's psychological pricing strategies. So there's research that goes through the idea that if I make you stand on line longer and you get frustrated, and then I give you some discounts when you get to the other end, the discounts mentally have more weighting on you, and you feel even better that the wait was worth it because you got all these great discounts, and you'll end up having more customer loyalty because of the perception of those discounts.
Yeah. This is just doubling down on everything is optimized.
It is so much so.
That does remind me, and I know we're just in random story time here, but this reminds me, I forget what airport it was, but people had to make like they were standing in a long line. And so it was very short. Like if you were going to get there, you could just bam, get there. And then there was a long line, and people complained about the line all of the time. And what they actually did was they blocked off the wall and they made you walk like 8 or 10 minutes, like a pretty significant walk to get to the exact same place. And the line was shorter because people would be shuffling their way around, and all of the complaints stopped. And it's like, well, yeah, but the best thing would be just bam, there you go. But no, you're going to actually have them walk around and, do the Disneyland of, changing the scene every few minutes.
But the perception is that in your mind, you look at that longer line that's not there, and you go, oh, we lucked out. The line isn't full. You do this at security for the airport all the time. If you get in there and you look and all of the rat maze there is empty, right? You're like, oh, sweet. I don't even care if I had to wait 10 minutes when I got in there still. But because I rat mazed through 90% of it really fast, like, this is awesome. Like, I skipped the line. Like, this is a red letter day. And it could have been the same every day, like you said, in a straight line instead. But because I gave you the perception that the line was shorter because I've made it theoretically longer, right? We played with the brain. We changed your perception. It is
brain, weird thing.
It is crazy stuff. I love this stuff. It's crazy. So what else we got? Well, and just to round off where we were on this, because I know we're getting towards the end of it. Amazon isn't the only one getting beat up on this. I know there were a couple of stories we came through, which we're not going to dive really deep into, but I mean, Apple got beat up for it in 2011 for fined for $429 million by the European Commission for engaging in anti-competitive behavior. Microsoft got beat up in 2000, Google in 2018, Facebook 2019. Uber got beat up, and we talked about it a little bit on a different show. Uber got beat up in 2017 for using surge pricing to gouge customers during times of high demand. And we've seen that, like you and I talked about, it actually is starting to get cheaper to rent a car than it is to take Uber. Like there's a lot of companies out here that try to do this and kind of cross the line. It's not just Amazon. I don't want to beat on them either.
Well, but to me, the ultimate downward pressure, and I hate to say it, but they made $1 billion off of this estimated. They'll probably get hit with a, I don't know, $150 million fee.
They still made money.
They made a bunch of money.
Yep.
That's, and I think that's the thing that will stop some of this stuff is by having swift and harsh.
Yeah. Yep. But they got to get caught first and then they have to pay for what they did. Right. The sad part is at the end of the day, if you provide really high quality customer service and you make people feel like you're a big mom and pop shop, you're truly giving customer service, you will still get all that money with less headache in what you're trying to do because customers will feel loyal and they will want to come shop with you instead of trying to manipulate them into shopping with you and manipulate them into paying more money,
Couldn't agree more. I mean, there's definitely places around my house that I love to go to just because they're good people and I don't even care about the price usually.
Yeah, you're going for the ambiance, the people, the owner you might know, things like that.
Yeah.
I have the same.
Yeah. Well, I think we about beat this one to death again, but this is always fun. Like these are the kind of episodes that tend to take a bunch of interesting twists and turns.
It's a nice look at just what's happening today, right? And we get to have some fun with it. It's not a tech deep dive or it's not us looking at something that is timeless. These are time bound, right? And it's really cool. And I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, man. It's always fun.
Cool. Well, then on to the next.
All right, buddy. Talk to you next time.
Cool. Cheers.